Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradare Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradare Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradare Yashodanandana Prajajana Jana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamuna Tiravanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanang Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtapraeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Science of God, Canto 7, Chapter 6, Prahlad instructs his demonic schoolmates, Text 10. Konarta Trishnang Visrijet. Gonarta Trishnang Visrijet Pranebhyo Piya Ipsitaha Yang Grinatya Subhi Prishtais Taskara Sevako Vanik Gonarta Trishnang Visrijet Pranebhyo Piya Ipsitaha Yang Grinatya Subhi Prishtais Taskara Sevako Vanik Gonarta Trishnang Visrijet Pranebhyo Piya Ipsitaha Yang Grinatya Subhi Prishtais Taskara Sevako Vanik. Would anyone like to try to read the verse?
Konvarta Trishnam Vishrujat Pranebhyo Piya Ipsitaha Yam Kirat Yasubi Preshtais Taskara Sevako Vanik.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else?
Konvarta Trishtam Visrijet Pranebhyopi Ya Ipsitaha Yam Grinatya Subhi Prestais Taskara Sevako Vanik.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else? Kaha, who? No, indeed. Artha Trishnang, a strong desire to acquire money. Visrijet, can give up. Pranebhyaha, pranebhyaha, than life. Api, indeed. Yaha, which. Ipsitaha, more desired. Yam, which. Grinati, tries to acquire. Asubihi, with his own life. Preshtaihi, very dear. Taskaraha, a thief. Sevakaha, a professional servant. Vanik, merchant. Translation. Money is so dear that one conceives of money as being sweeter than honey. Therefore, who can give up the desire to accumulate money, especially in household life? Thieves, professional servants, soldiers, and merchants try to acquire money even by risking their very dear lives. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. How money can be dearer than life is indicated in this verse. Thieves may enter the house of a rich man to steal money at the risk of their lives. Because of trespassing, they may be killed by guns or attacked by watchdogs, but still they try to commit burglary. Why do they risk their lives? Only to get some money. Similarly, a professional soldier is recruited into the army and he accepts such service with the risk of dying on the battlefield, only for the sake of money. In the same way, merchants go from one country to another on boats at the risk of their lives, or they dive into the water of the sea to collect pearls and valuable gems. Thus, it is practically proved, and everyone will admit that money is sweeter than honey. One may risk everything to acquire money, and this is especially true of rich men who are too attached to household life. Formerly, of course, the members of the high castes, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, everyone but the Shudras, were trained in the Gurukula to adhere to a life of renunciation and sense control by practicing brahmacharya, mystic yoga. Then they were allowed to enter household life. There have consequently been many instances in which great kings and emperors have given up household life. Although they were extremely opulent and were the masters of kingdoms, they could give up all their possessions because they were trained early as brahmacharis. Prahlad Maharaj's advice is therefore very appropriate. Komarang achare pragyo dharman bhagavatan iha durlabam manusham janma tadapya dhruvam artadam. Quote, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life. In other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human body is most rarely achieved, and although temporary like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of devotional service, even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. End quote. Human society should take advantage of this instruction. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Konorta Trishnam Visrijet Pranebhyo Piya Ipsitaha Yang Krinatya Subhi Prishtais Taskara Sevako Vanik. Money is so dear that one conceives of money as being sweeter than honey. Therefore, who can give up the desire to accumulate money, especially in household life? Thieves, professional servants, soldiers, and merchants try to acquire money even by risking their very dear lives. So Prahlad Maharaj is uh, describing um, how people actually stay in bondage. Why in household life, one of the key factors that causes bondage in household life, and it's this false conception that money is actually sweeter than honey. And Prabhupada is giving more examples, or is elaborating on the examples that Prahlad Maharaj has cited, that this conception runs so deep that persons are actually willing to risk their lives just for money. So we see in today's society, in the ways in which it's structured, debt is sweeter than honey. So persons don't see that by participating in the so-called free market, the way in which you participate in a typical fashion of going to school, going to elementary school, high school, then you go to university. It's actually a system of getting you to become indebted. And basically, what happens is, and if you look at the system of the conditioning, is that people or young people, like being here in a college town, you can maintain your position as a witness because every time like we walk down the streets or just you park your vehicle, you go to the BYC and you're just walking down the streets or you're just even driving in downtown. There's a cause of reflection. Is that okay? Here I was also at that life stage, early 20s, 19, early 20s, going to and fro. And what was I convinced by? Why was I going to and fro from classes? And the propaganda is that if you yeah, if you acquire these letters behind your name, if you go through the system of education, you're going to be assured of a career. Okay. So for 30 years, so your maintenance is going to be assured. So similarly, even money, that's the promise. The promise of money is that you'll be able to live, you'll be able to survive. And so the conception is that you need money to survive. And then once you're surviving, then is that okay, but I want to thrive as a spirit soul, Ananda Mayo Biasat. So more than surviving is to thrive. And so the allure of money is that the more I accumulate, then I will thrive. I won't just survive, I will thrive. Hmm. So here in the examples, these examples that Prahlad Maharaj has cited are very instructive. Hmm. So for the Shudra, he thinks, and even our professional soldiers or professional Shudras. So for a Shudra is that they think that they have this fear that they won't survive, right? And the fear runs so deep that if there isn't a possibility, if there isn't hope of thriving, then you think that your survival is being threatened. Mm. So, um, and this is where debt comes in, is that it gives a false hope that you're going to thrive, that by actually becoming more indebted. So the way the mind thinks about debt, it doesn't think about it in terms of bondage. You think about it in terms of the hope of thriving. So for professional servant or a Shudra, they think that, okay, I just need to do whatever I need to get this means of livelihood and this hope of thriving. And so basically, they work for somebody else. So the conception is that I just need to do whatever just to get this possibility of thriving. And then for the merchant, they've the merchant is slightly advanced, is that they think that the more product, so if I have more product, I can accumulate product, then I will get money. Or if I accumulate more product, then I'll thrive. So just like, for example, a drug dealer, the difference between an addict and a dealer is that the dealer is thinking about accumulating product, right? So that they can get money. And then the addict is thinking about um, uh, if I don't get a hit, then I'm going to be feeling withdrawal and I'm going to be feeling a lot of pain. So I need to always get a hit and be high just to avoid this pain. And so they're willing to do whatever, sell their bodies, steal, burglarize, etc. Um, just for this, uh, just to avoid the pain of withdrawal. Okay, right. So that's what's coded. So the reward pathways in their brain makes them experience this pain of withdrawal. Okay. And then for the merchant, they are not so conditioned by, the neurological circuitry is not so, it hasn't been affected by this conception so much. And so they think about accumulating product to thriving, right? So as Prabhupada gave the example, they're willing to actually even go into the deep sea, even, yeah, can drown, your equipment could fail, etc. And then if we look at the administrators, um, they are higher, right? So and their conception is that if I accumulate strength, so the means of thriving is through strength. So for Shudra, the means of thriving is through money. For Vaishya, means of thriving is through product, because that by a product I can sell and therefore get more money. Um, for and administrators, through strength, I can thrive, right? So if I have strength, I can subjugate others, tax them, and therefore I can increase my treasury, right? And then for the and then for the intellectual or brahmana is that my means of thriving is through knowledge. So if I accumulate more knowledge, then actually I'll become detached. So this is for a Brahmin in the mode of goodness. Of course, for the intellectuals that um, that have been captured by the Vaishyas, they think that, like for example, modern academics, uh, their minds have been captured, right, by the Vaishyas, and so there's been an insidious infection in their knowledge, and so they accumulate money or at least knowledge for the sake of tenureship, for the sake of grants, which again is just another type, just like Prahlad Maharaj here, or at least Prabhupada is giving an enriched purport as a professional soldier is as good as a Shudra. Whereas a Kshatriya, like a proper Kshatriya, they wouldn't just work for anyone, right? So similarly, even in modern day society, Kalo Sudra Sambhava, everybody is a Shudra because of this insidious, because they've been captured by this conception that actually they think money is sweeter than honey, right? So for the intellect, grants are sweeter than the actual knowledge and the pursuit of truth. Um, for the modern politician, uh, money is sweeter than protecting or strength. It's sweeter than strength. So therefore, they accept bribes and they themselves can get blackmailed. So there's a whole system of blackmail that's going on. And a lot of these politicians are being caught in pedophile scandals. And it's all part of a great system of bribery. And then for the Vaishyas, they captured in that there's Krishna, he says the Vaishyas, they think about protecting animals, think about banking. So everybody is thinking that to be a successful merchant, you have to think like a banker, accumulate more and more money. So if we think, okay, now how to become free from this conception? So there's this website. Let me see if I can find it. It visualizes money. Can't, yeah, I can't remember it. So I'll post it on the group chat. But basically, it's very fascinating. So it you think about okay, $100 bill, and then if we stack $100 bills, right? It's 10,000, right? So then you take those stacks, and 10,000 is actually not that big. It's a lot of money. You can do quite a bit with it, but in terms of you can actually hold it in your hand. It's not that much, right? Then you take that and then you put it, and then what does 1 million look like, right? And then they actually put it on a pallet. And then what does 100 million look like? Then it's stacked on a pallet. And then it goes on with pallets on a semi truck. How many pallets is a billion? And then how many yeah, what does 10 billion look like? It's like, and then compares it to skyscrapers. And then it shows you the amount of money that the big banks like JP Morgan, um, Chase, all these big banks, how much money they have, Wells Fargo. and in terms of skyscrapers. So it so then when you look at that visual, you can actually see that, oh, most people actually won't ever be able to accumulate 10 million. It's above average. What to speak of 100 million, right? Um, so the visual then lets you know that, oh, I'm just working for a pallet of cash. That's really what I'm working for. And in this verse, it's meant to actually wake you up, uh, to actually see, oh, um, I'm willing to like sacrifice my life just for example, I'm willing to sacrifice my health, right? So the modern system of education is that you like work till late, and then you even recreate very late. So the students, um, even at like midnight, it's like downtown is just busy. Okay. Very, very busy. And then early in the morning, like 5 a.m., there's hardly anyone, right? So they basically educated that the time of awakening for you is deep into the night. So if you're awake at night, what do you what are you going to do? You're going to eat, right? And so if you're eating, then your body doesn't have time to actually reset and run its processes of getting through all the waste. And so your health is being affected. So what's sold to you as enjoyment, you basically are risking health. And we can see people, even though life expectancy, it's said to have increased in the last 100 years to like 80 years. Uh, but even for those people who survive, suicide ideation, all these things which actually affect the life expectancy, suicide ideation, committing suicide, um, abortion. If you actually get fortunate and survive these things, when you're about like 55 or so, your health is just breaking down because of all these late nights. So to maintain a career, you have to put your life on the your health on the line. Hmm. Yeah. So we spoke about last week about how to become an intelligent renouncer. Krishna speaks about this in the 18th chapter, text number 10. The intelligent renouncer is situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. Hmm. So the whole point here is how to become free from reactions, how to uproot the tree of material existence within the core of one's heart. And Prahlad Maharaj is instructing his friends that, okay, we're going to go for the jugular here. And the jugular is this money, this conception that actually money is sweeter than honey to the point that you're willing to put your life on the line. Okay, so let's see what is said more about this verse. Okay. So this is from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, explaining more about this verse. So we've discussed the first section where Krishna discussed how action with detachment, with the mood of renunciation, is better than renunciation of action. Essentially, how by performing karma yoga one can stay free from bondage. Okay. Previous point is explained philosophically further in the second section where it describes what keeps a karma yogi free from bondage is the jnana of karma yoga, which describes 5 factors of action and describes how when one understands these factors and acts, one will stay free from bondage. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that the cause of becoming bonded to household life is this concept, is money. And the idea that um, that it's actually sweeter than honey, that I need it to actually survive. So Prabhupada in the purport, he explained in the verse that the whole system of Gurukul, the system of education, of learning how to give up everything for the service of the Guru is to actually free you from this conception that you actually need money to survive. No. All you need is the instruction of the spiritual master. And at the Gurukul, from a very young age, you actually learn that, oh, simply by serving the representative of the root of this tree of existence, then I get pleasure. So all the rules and regulations that govern the brahmachari at the Gurukul is that they become convinced that my pleasure comes from serving the feet of the representative of Krishna. Um, and that's what's sweeter than honey. Yeah. So service. So service is sweeter than honey. And if you do it from a very young age, you're not going to be fooled by the false advertising that's going on in the free market that no, you to thrive, to survive, first of all, you need money. So the higher castes, as we explained, is that for them, they're convinced by something else. They know that um, at least in the classic sense, those who haven't been captured by the propaganda in the Kali Yuga, the true Vaishyas, true Kshatriyas, true Brahmanas, they're convinced that no, I actually don't need money to survive, right? And so this is what they learn at the Gurukul. And then they cultivate that which is going to make them thrive. So ultimately, everybody gets trained. Sorry. So at the Gurukul, ultimately, everybody gets trained that actually that which sustains is Dharma. So Dharma, that's its definition. Dharma means to hold up. And so the highest Dharma is that of the soul, the Sanatana Dharma. And at the school of the Gurukul, you get an opportunity to actually taste the nectar of the Sanatana Dharma, right? So, yeah, we were fortunate enough to stay at Gita Nagari for a few years. And we did it on the order of our spiritual master. And so these, the second half of Prabhupada's mission, even though we only got Krishna consciousness, as teenagers, 19. These farm communities and Prabhupada's second half of his mission gives the opportunity that, okay, you didn't get you weren't born of a devotee mother or a father, and therefore you weren't exposed to Krishna consciousness from the womb through the Garbhadan samskar. Nor did you get exposure to, nor were your parents you know, attracted to Hinduism and maybe they might have taken you to the temple, right? So you go through 19 years of just darkness, and then Prabhupada and his Sankirtan devotees, they meet you on the street. And then it's not too late. This is the power of Prabhupada's contribution to the world, is that even though one can traditionally to actually get exposed to this high knowledge of Prahlad Maharaj's teachings, one needs to go to the Gurukul at a very young age, right? But Prabhupada's society is such that no, you can actually even go to the Gurukul in your early 20s. Uh, and this is when you like stay at the temple. And especially when you, yeah, stay on a farm community like Gita Nagari. So it actually affords you this opportunity despite missing out on these early years. Hmm. And so they, while serving the cows on a full-time basis, uh, you really can see, no, I actually don't need money to survive. Uh, in fact, you just need your service. And then to thrive, you know, is that, no, I need to become more regulated in my habits. Uh, so when you're regulated in your eating, you're sleeping, then the service is very nice. You know, you sleep on time. There's no, you don't, yeah, eat late at night. You put, uh, software on your phone to make sure that you can actually go to bed on time. And so through this regulation, molding your life around the schedule of the cows, then you actually come to the mode of goodness. Because the cows naturally, they're in the mode of goodness. They don't watch TV. They don't have watches, and yet they know exactly when you have a schedule for them on milking, the time that you actually milk them, they'll always be there waiting at the gate. Um, so so they're in the mode of goodness, very regulated. They sleep a couple of hours. Mostly, yeah, because they're big animals, uh, they can't be laying down for too long because there won't be enough circulation, and so they're popping in and out of sleep. But because you're in touch with them, then you actually also come to the mode of goodness. And they're so pure that even you come in as a young man, still being affected by lust, because you're seeing them as a mother, you're serving them as mother, then even this whole conception of viewing women as just, and even your partner as just an object for your own lusty desires dissolves. Yeah, it gets dissolved by Go Saver, service to the cows. So these are the gifts of the Gurukul. Actually, uh, uh, this following the order of the spiritual master is that even if you're not at a place, it's very advantageous if you're at a place where the spiritual master's influence is predominant, and you can mold your daily services around what he wants, right? But if you just take a few years just to full on, like just to serve the mission, serve Prabhupada's mission, uh, and you're staying at a temple, uh, this becomes your Gurukul. Yeah. And this is the wonderful contribution of Srila Prabhupada. So we continue with this commentary on 1810 of Bhagavad Gita. Further analysis on elements of action and how those elements of action like karma, jnana, karma, karta, jnana, determination, driti, knowledge, doer, action. How all these things affect when a person is doing activities. And then depending on which mode these are done, appropriate results come about, right? So bhakti synthesizes karma and jnana. So positive of karma is it is natural. We all want it to be active, but negative karma is it causes bondage in material existence. Then positive knowledge is it is liberating because one is not going to get into activity. It is slowly liberating, but the negative is that being inactive is unnatural. Hegelian, who was a European thinker, he had the idea that first one proposes one particular idea, that is the thesis, then one tries to counter that idea, that is antithesis, and then one combines thesis and antithesis together, that is synthesis. Synthesis is a high understanding which integrate both contrary schools of thought while removing their negative parts of problems So we all see bhakti is a synthesis. So when we act in devotion to the Supreme Lord, action is natural. But because the action is not motivated by our own desires, it is motivated to serve the Lord. It is not binding, it is liberating. So in this way, bhakti is natural and liberating, and the positives of both and the negatives of both are removed. So this is the spirit in which we act. So this is the service to the spiritual master. This is what it actually does, is that the negative of entering into household life, right? So sex, um, and then being in touch with money, the threat of being affected by this conception that I'll actually think it's sweeter than honey because my survival depends on it. It gets removed. So therefore, the devotee, right, he can act, right? So what Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is explaining is that the intelligent renouncer is that first there's one side, right? Is that, okay, I need to give up, I need to cultivate knowledge. And the cultivation of knowledge seems to propose inaction, so less activity. But that's not good because you won't be able to survive. Okay. And then activity produces bondage, right? So I need to act, but I need to act in such a way that I don't enter into bondage. In other words, I don't increase my debt in household life. I don't see myself as the Lord of my children, my family members. I need to avoid, I need to act to actually maintain them, but I need to also avoid these false conceptions that, oh, yes, my wife is, I'm maintaining her, and therefore I have a right to actually enjoy her body as and when I want to, right? So, so then enter Grihastha ashram, right? So the conception then is that I'm going to act as a servant of the Lord. These spirit souls are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. This is my conception. So what's sweeter than honey is that I'm a servant, my Sanatana Dharma. And therefore, the synthesis, right, of what I need to do manifests very wonderfully in the Grihastha ashram that's dovetailed to the service of the Lord. And this is what Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is explaining here, is that you avoid the conception that money is sweeter than honey. You avoid the conception that to work for my senses is actually my self-interest, which is what Prahlad Maharaj, up to this point of his instructions, he said um, that one should avoid. Um, and so you avoid that, and you also avoid the negative of the idea that you need to stop activity. Because if you stop activity, again, you can't maintain your own body and soul together and those of your dependents. You can't do it. So then you act, you fight, you work, you code, um, you drive, you milk, you lead for the service of Krishna. So you do all this because Krishna, it'll actually give pleasure to Krishna. And how do you know what will give pleasure to Krishna? You just ask his representative, and that's his spiritual master. That's the spiritual master. Mm. So today, on this Saturday, we should pray to Radha Damodar to ask ourselves this question is that what is it that I'm attracted to that I think is going to make me thrive? And so there's life stage renunciation, right? So Prahlad Maharaj and his friends, they're renouncing right now frivolous sports as young boys, right? Um, So Prahlad Maharaj has spoken about there's time wasters in different life stages. In old age, the time waster is poor health, right? And so I will be attracted. What is sweeter than honey is good health, right? In teenagehood, what is sweeter than honey is the opposite sex because you're in puberty. So your survival is taken care of. You don't have to work. And so the real allure, the only allure is the opposite sex or just sex in general. So it might be, yeah, you might be attracted to same sex, etc. But in any case, it's just the possibility of having sex. Um, and then when you are maintaining, right? So you're growing and then you produce some byproducts, then it's money. Yeah. Now it's household life. Now you're attracted. The money is sweeter than honey, right? So we can think in devotional service, is it that what is it that in my practice that is actually going to cause me to thrive, particularly thrive when I'm chanting, thrive in following the order of my spiritual master. Mm. What is it? So we can ask about that, pray, think about it, meditate on this. And in this way, we can mold our life around what is it that's going to make me uh, just move closer to, yeah, just molding my life around following the order of the spiritual master. And that which I'm attracted to, that's material, and that I think is gonna cause me to thrive, we can see we can see it through Krishna's eyes. We should see that very thing that I'm attracted to at this life stage that I'm in through Krishna's eyes. Okay. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions, reflections, or contentions?
I have a question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Money. Where can I get free money? Um, it is said that money can't buy happiness.
Yes.
Is that true? And if so, explain.
Yeah, so let's try to be bona fide here. So according to the Bhagavad Gita, according to Krishna's explanation of how happiness and distress works, is that basically happiness, the happiness that we're referring to is material happiness, right? Um, and and so basically this idea that let me put it this way. Um, it can't it can't buy the sense objects. So you can bring the senses and the sense objects together, right? But it can't buy the state of mind. So if I have more food, it doesn't mean that I just, have more items in my cart and maybe like there's foods that I like to eat. Um, maybe ice cream, maybe even jackfruit sabji, maybe even kachoris, right? Um, Even though those foods are actually very good, if I'm not in a healthy state of like in a state of good health. If it's like early in the morning, for example, um, those things are actually, yeah, they're actually going to cause distress, right? So it's the same thing with money is that it can't buy satisfaction. It can certainly buy the sense objects on the free market. You can buy anything, but it can't buy the satisfaction. So when you bring the senses and the sense objects together, it doesn't mean that from that combination, the mind is going to experience the happiness. So this material happiness is nothing but a neurochemical secretion. It's dopamine. So dopamine being released, the synapses in the brain, this is really what the substance of this material happiness is. So money can certainly, um, just like a drug addict, they may inject the substance, right? And then temporarily they may feel some exhilaration. In other words, the experience of dopamine being secreted in the brain. But then there's a crash afterwards. So in the same way, with the conception that I can actually buy happiness, um, it yeah, you don't actually buy the satisfaction. You can buy the dopamine hit, but you can't buy that satisfaction. So probably it's not my answer is not referencing a Bhagavad Gita verse, but that's what I've understood. I don't know if that answers your question.
That's good. Sometimes we see that someone has a great deal of money, they're still unhappy. Sometimes we see that wealthy people commit suicide because they're so unhappy. So evidently there's some kind of a disconnect. What we understand from our Siddhanta is that karma is an important determining factor, that you may have all the ingredients, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to enjoy them. You may have a great deal of money and yet still be miserable. For example, as you pointed out, if one is in ill health, then all kinds of things may be unenjoyable. Money may even be a source of misery. In the absence of money, one is miserable because they desire money and don't have it. And then one who has money is in constant anxiety that he may lose the money. And then if he does actually lose the money or spends all the money, then he laments that the money is lost. So it can be a source of misery or a source of happiness, depending upon the circumstances, but there are no guarantees. You can make a great deal of money, but due to circumstances beyond your control, you may lose it all. I have practical experience of this. You can work really hard, really long hours, and make a lot of money, and never get to enjoy a penny of it if it's not within your karma. So happiness is not directly tied to things, and certainly not money. With money, as you pointed out, all kinds of things can be acquired, but it doesn't necessarily have any correlation to happiness at all. You may acquire everything that you desire and discover that that still does not make you happy. It may satisfy your desire temporarily, but it doesn't really fulfill. The novelty wears off quickly, and then you're left empty again. And immediately more desires arise, and again you're unhappy. Again, you feel that you have to endeavor for more and more, and somehow or other the actual happiness remains always elusive. There's everyone's seen pictures of like a donkey with a stick tied to its head and a carrot dangling in front of it. The donkey endlessly chases the carrot, and it's useful to incentivize the donkey to move forward. You can get him to pull a cart, for example, He keeps chasing the carrot, never gets the carrot, but he keeps endeavoring for it. So Maya has got us all shackled in a similar way. We work very, very hard trying to achieve happiness, but never actually achieving it. And that brings me to another question, if you care to answer it.
Hmm.
Is is it even possible um, in a given lifetime to acquire wealth, for example, simply by laboring? Is money necessarily the direct result of hard labor, or is it dependent upon karma from a previous birth?
Well, a lot of young people, they don't even need to read the Bhagavad Gita to answer that question. And that's why a lot of them are just checking out of the typical pattern of accumulating wealth, is going to school, getting a degree, and then working for 30 years. A lot of people, a lot of young people, especially in the US, they're unable to actually afford a mortgage. And so we can see that, yeah, the accumulation of money is definitely not related to labor. Now, even with AI, intelligence has been commoditized, right? So basically, white collar work, the material intelligence that it requires to do just basic white collar work, which really it's not even basic, but even complex. Either you're producing software or you are producing prescriptions, you know, for like medicine. You're producing chemical recommendations for the treatment. You're producing um, designs of, yeah, a design of, a chair, different types of devices. This has been commoditized. So now, for entry-level jobs, your degree could get you an entry-level job, and then you can begin with a graduate degree. Then you can begin earning money. But now, a lot of people, young people, are saying, "Oh, actually, I need to even get, uh, yeah, go for a PhD, for example." Because the entry-level jobs are being replaced by AI. So definitely, even without knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, people can see that no, there's no correlation. So there's some other factor. So who are the rich? So the people who already have money, who are the rich? And a lot of these kids, here in State College, they drive really fancy cars. Um, yeah, they're like born in rich families. So people can see then the correlation to actually having money in this world is birth. Yeah, and so this is karma. So who's your mother, who's your father? This is all karma. So even though they don't have the vocabulary, but they're seeing. And then even in the free market of information, particularly with like yeah, like news, there's like these really strange highs that happen. People becoming the head of, a legacy media company without much experience, or just without much skill and track record. They're actually getting these positions. And so there's the politics. So that's what's upstream. So culture is upstream of politics. But we can see even in politics as well, and cancel culture, artists when they begin to speak out against some of the forces that they're subjected to influence their decision making and they want to break free. They can see that, oh yeah, there's just like placement. In the music industry, they call them plants, um, you know, artists who really aren't that talented, but then they just starts they just getting all the marketing and they're making all these records and they're getting featured in this ad, that ad. And the artists who've been there and who are more talented, they like, yeah, they're just pushing this artist because they have an agenda. Um, the overlords that actually control the industry. So each industry, it has its like deep state, if you like, of its overlords, and they don't follow the rules that we are being advertised. The rules being that uh, if you work, you'll actually accumulate opulence and success. Those aren't the rules. The rules are if your overlord, in other words, if you serve a boss, do what he wants, and typically it's something very dark. If you actually accept them and treat them as your god and perform puja for them, and in other words, you give your life the way Prahlad Maharaj is citing money as. So that person, if you put them as your worshipable deity, then then yes, you'll get success. But that's not related to labor. So it's a perversion of these Sanatana Dharma, which is to serve the Lord. And even with us, is that what Krishna's promising, right? You can't work for Sarshti, Samipya, all these opulences of being on the same planet as the Lord, having his association, having a four-armed form like him. There's just no correlation between your labor and actually what you get. Yeah. Krishna is promising all this. So this is the actual system. Um, both in the actual reality, original reality in the spiritual world, um, the reality in the material world on how to become liberated, as well as the reality of the dark world of gangs and gangsters. That, yeah, white collar gangs and white collar gangsters that they're running all these industries, but they just, like Hiranyakashipu, they want you to replace them, or let me say, they want you to replace your God with them. That's really what they want. And then that will get you uh, wealth that is much more beyond the labor that you can toil through. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
That's good. Thanks.
Any other from Yashadev Prabhu trying to appreciate the wealth of devotional service? Thank you, Prabhu, for coming. Hari Chakra Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Gary.
Yes, Prabhu.
Dhanava Pranam, more bless to you, more bless to Prabhupada, to the assembled devotee. Thank you very much for your class. Yeah, about the last question that you answered and the one before, I think Srila Prabhupada answers that question perfectly. And also, Srila Vatitya Maharaj also makes a similar, give a similar answer in I've forgotten the exact book that he said. When he said that in this world, a lot of things can happen. He gave an example of a farmer. He says, the fact that you have all the ingredients of farming doesn't mean you can be a successful farmer. You might have all the ingredients of farming, but the effort you put in, there must be an effort put in, and apart from the effort, the mercy must also come. So effort and mercy, when they come together, then they produce results. And he explained it, Bhatitata Maharaj explained that like a farmer, you have the field, you have the seeds, everything. You have everything in place. And if you put it there and you don't get the mercy, and the mercy is the good weather that comes. So, and the good weather, you as a farmer, you cannot control the good weather. So if that mercy comes and a couple with your effort, then it produces results. You get the yield of crops. So in this world, we are always relying on those two things: the effort we put in, and then the mercy that comes to add to the effort to produce a result. So Prabhupada, the way Prabhupada explained that thing, Prabhupada was telling a story about a king who had asked a servant to cook. So the servant went to the kitchen. He had all the ingredients and trying to cook a rice. He put the rice in the pot, put the water on top, put everything on top, and then put it on the tripod and made a fire underneath it. And 30 minutes later, he went to look, the rice was, nothing has happened. The water was not even boiling. 1 hour later, he went, the rice was not, the water was not even boiling. So the king was asking the servant, why is it taking too long? Eventually, the king had to go into the kitchen to see what was happening. When he went into the kitchen, he realized that the tripod that the water, the bowl was on top, was like about 4 feet away from the fire, higher away from the fire. And the king was saying, that is crazy. How would you ever get this rice boiling, cooked, if the what we call it, the bowl is so far away from the fire itself? The fire is not getting the pot is not getting any heat. So how would the fire be? So even though you have all the ingredients of cooking, but when it is not properly combined, which is the mercy, it can never yield the results. And Prabhupada explains that even in devotional life, the same thing happens. You can have all the ingredients of what do I call devotional life, but when it is not properly combined, you might not get the results of devotional service. And that one is explained in the, you see that little book, that small book that says Prabhupada Nectar.
Mm.
Yeah. One of the stories in that Prabhupada Nectar, yeah, Prabhupada explains this act in there. And so that's why Prabhupada was explaining that you actually need the mercy. You need the mercy of the spiritual master, because you might have all the ingredients of devotional life, but if you don't have the mercy, you never yield the results of devotional life. And similarly, everything in this world, you might have the effort, you might put the effort, everything, but if you don't have the mercy, if it's not coupled with the mercy, you never yield results. Other than that, it's like you can be somebody can be born in a very, very rich family, and the person can never experience, enjoy the riches because of some devastating, what do we call it, disease or something really, really bad in the person's life. He cannot enjoy the riches of the family, even though he's right in the middle of the riches, but he cannot enjoy the riches. So everything we do in this world, we need the mercy. We need the mercy of the Lord. We need the mercy of the representatives of the Lord, so that they can show us how to, what do we call it, properly combine the ingredients of material nature to get a very good results in our Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for that answering those two questions from Taraka Prabhu in a very instructive way. As you were speaking, I was thinking also of Krishna explaining the five factors of action. The place of action or the body, the performer, the various senses, different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. And thank you for emphasizing. The predominant factor is indeed the mercy that's coming through Krishna's agents. So the super soul is an expansion of Krishna, is a Chaitya Guru, and then the Sakshat expansion is the Diksha Guru. So thank you, for just emphasizing that and how it also applies even in our prosecution of sadhana bhakti. We always need Krishna. We always need the mercy of his representative. Any other contributions? Okay, so dear devotees, yes, let us pray for. Remember that everything depends on the mercy of the Lord. It doesn't depend on money. What is sweeter than honey is service at the feet of the lotus feet of our spiritual master, our respective spiritual masters, and we should know everything actually. Our happiness, our satisfaction, everything that is auspicious, that which we feel will cause us to thrive, that which we need to actually survive. It all depends on service to the lotus feet of Krishna's representative. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur.